Hello, my name is Janice B. Gordon, and this is Scale Your Sales Podcast. Welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, listed number 9 of 43 best podcasts for every sales professional. I am Janice B. Gordon, the customer growth expert, awarded RevTech strategist of 2024. In today's episode of Scale Your Sales Podcast, my guest is a real advocate of diversity and champions innovative approaches and highlighting specialism within teams. She often goes into meetings and she's the only woman in the meeting, but also one of the only CROs that many of her buyers and suppliers have met. She says she's used to being the only, and she loves situations where she's having to up her skills, and she's a lifelong learner. She says that building a strong unit from a diverse resource is really important to her, and this is how she identifies she's in the right place with her organization. When she joined them, she researched and understood the character and culture because it was diverse from the top down. My next guest is the Chief Revenue Officer of Caxton Payments, the pioneering UK Fintech. With a 20-year career, growing revenues across scale-up businesses in a variety of industries, she prides herself on non-traditional routes to success. So please welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, Melanie Mills.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you for having me. I feel very privileged and really excited to speak to you today.
Well, I'm excited to speak to you. I mean, as we were talking about, there aren't many women CROs. And I know that you get this a lot when you turn and think, oh, you're a woman. It's like, yeah, I've been all my life. So
Absolutely.
I'd really like to understand what it's like on your side of the table. What are the kind of responses that you get, and what's still shocking to you in terms of perhaps the way that you're treated, or what may be some of the kind of the beneficial experiences?
I've always liked being different, and I've strived my entire life from being a teenager to be different, from all the different colour hair and piercings and tattoos I may have. So to be honest, being different, standing out, being the only one has never been an issue for me. In fact, I've always strived for that. I think through my career, I've used it to my advantage, but I haven't let it hold me back. There have obviously been some more difficult scenarios, but I think everything generally is on delivery. So as long as you deliver upon what you say you're going to do, then people naturally respect you. Look, I think there are challenges, and it's disappointing to see so few women, especially in the UK, in sales roles. I think there's a lot we can be doing as leaders and as organisations to make that easier. I have a daughter. I think there's a lot around kind of hybrid and flexible working. There's a lot of considerations we can take. I think there's an awful lot of, I think, thinking and putting diversity inclusion at the forefront of everything we do in any business. Doesn't have to just be within sales. It's going to set you up to look great to prospect candidates. And I think more work needs to be done in that space, because we talk about, you know, salespeople as being rock stars, or it might have a bad connotation, and women don't naturally lean into that. So I think there's a lot that can be done. We're trying to do it in our own different ways. I think we have to be conscious of it, and be open to doing things a bit differently, quite frankly.
Well, then you went on to set up Caxton Career Collective. So tell me about what inspired that.
I do an awful lot of mentoring, and take a huge amount of pride in that. I love to give back. I've had some phenomenal people, male and female, in my career that have given me opportunity, given me a leg up. So I like to do the same. I was actually looking for an organisation where I could do mentoring at scale, because obviously as individuals it can take up quite a lot of time. And I actually looked at Chief Network, which is big in the States. And then when it came over to the UK, explored that further. But for me, there's quite a hefty price tag on an awful lot of these organisations, and really it was geared to peer-to-peer. It was less to how can you give back. I spoke to Caxton, our Chief of People is really all about supporting any initiatives, could see that I had a real purpose in this space. And actually coming into the organisation, I noticed that, I mean, we're an even split male-female. It's financial services, it's technology. That's something that is very unusual. It's certainly part of the reason why I joined. And that's really where Caxton Career Collective was born. It was around, you want to do something, feel free to create your own. And that's what we did just over a year ago. And it's really about women in underrepresented industries and roles. And I really enjoy the diverse mix of people we get in the room because of that. I think there's a lot of women in tech or women in sales or women in a certain area. I think when you actually bring a mix of women together from different industries in different underrepresented roles, you get an eclectic mix, great ideas, and can help people transfer into different industries. I think unfortunately women will pigeonhole themselves and are maybe less confident about transitioning into different spaces. And I think when we bring lots of people together, they become more open to that way of thinking.
And it's interesting because you've transitioned your career, haven't you, into different industries. How did you find that? Because you may be in an industry where it's, you know, traditional men, and it's just, you feel like you're the only one that's trying to make the change. And often when you kind of jump ship into another industry, it's like, oh my gosh, why haven't I been here all the time? So how did you find kind of transitioning?
Do you know, I'm kind of the opposite, because I started off in an industry that was heavily female, so kind of fashion and cosmetics. I was missing the lack of diversity in that space, if I'm honest. It's part of the reason I changed. And moving into technology over 10 years ago, I was looking for a more diverse work environment. And with technology, you're working with developers, you're working with a real mixed set of different people, and that's what I wanted. However, I find the challenges, I think breaking into any new industry, into a different role even, you're always trying to evidence, like, why would you be a great candidate? Because naturally people want people who have been there and done it before. Actually, my biggest successes have been coming from a very different industry and looking at things with a different lens, through a different lens. And that's been my success. So I am then naturally an advocate of doing the same. I'm not always looking for people who have just been there and done that before. And I really enjoy kind of the junior recruitment process, because you've got people that are a bit more open and you can be a bit more selective in that area.
And that's interesting, because that leads on to, you know, talking about making sure you've got the right people in the right seat, and you're very much an advocate for diversity and women in leadership. And so, what, as you say, I'm going down the recruitment process. Recruiters tend to select candidates that have been in that role before, or been in that space before, and very nervous of going outside of that, where actually there's real successes in finding people outside of the traditional sectors and environments, because it brings that diversity of thought. They're doing things differently, and it can really lean into kind of create more innovative and creative solutions. So how do you go about making sure that you do have a broad reach of diverse people, and how do you make sure there aren't the barriers in the organization to get through?
I think it's a real partnership. There's a partnership between your internal recruitment teams and making sure that they're fully aware of what we're trying to achieve. And then if you do partner with external organisations, that you absolutely have the same values and you understand what their process is. And the closer you can work together, the better. I mean, ultimately, candidates are looking at a business through various different lenses, be that Glassdoor, be that LinkedIn. I think you have to be very aware of the way that you're putting yourself forward, what the benefits are. Clearly, if you're trying to attract more women into an organisation, you're going to have to be offering flexible working. Obviously, that's mandatory to a certain extent, but you know, the hours, the expectation in the office, there's this whole discussion that's coming back up around bringing people back into the office. I think there's an element in certain roles that, you know, that social element, that people facing piece, where coming into the office definitely brings, especially in a sales environment, definitely brings its advantages. But then there's core working hours, and outside of that, if you've got caring responsibilities, like how are you supporting bringing the types of candidates that you want in? Because you can say one thing and then deliver another. I mean, it's a huge topic, but I do think that from the outset, having the right job descriptions, I think using the right terminology, I think working with some D&I experts if you have got an issue in that area and you're kind of transitioning out of kind of a very male heavy environment, is that you need to do the work, you have to be committed to it, and you have to truly believe. And from the top down, you know, from a board level, and obviously with ESG, there's far more onus, especially for VC-backed businesses now, to be thinking more about this from a commercial sense. So I think we're moving in the right direction. I just think we've got a long way to go. I'm just super fortunate that I came across a business that had already done so much work over the years. And again, that's because they had a superb chief of people who was really all about that and had seen her own career develop as a female commercial leader who knew the impact that could have. So yeah, I think starting at the very, very top down, I think there's lots of things you can do with internally and externally.
So you've identified, you know, if you're going for a role, there's key things that you need to to look for to make sure that you're entering the right environment. Mm-hmm. And one is you looked at what is the mix of senior leadership, yeah. And not only senior lead, but throughout the organisation. So you know, have that funnel to feed through, but also the diversity of people. You said that the people officer was really critical, but the people officer couldn't work unless the kind of senior, the chief executive was also on board as well. So what are the interview questions, or what is the research that the person needs to do before they actually put themselves forward to ensure that it's the right environment for them?
And when we're talking about scaling your sales, right, anyone that's in that sales environment should be able to do great research, because they should be researching the businesses that they want to sell into. I would take all of the skills that you use on a day-to-day basis and put them into your recruitment process. Mm-hmm. So if you are looking for an organisation, you do due diligence. You absolutely go and look on LinkedIn, go and look at the recommendations, go and read Glassdoor. There's lots of ways that you can do this, and you need to be looking into the background of the business as well. Look at the company directors. I think that people can very easily try and talk the talk, but are they actually walking the walk? And also, if you are in a recruitment process, so you've done your due diligence and you are seeing that this looks like an organisation that could work for me, is like make sure you're speaking to the wider teams. I would even be tapping people up on LinkedIn that maybe had worked there that have moved on. I think you can see internal progression, like who are progressing. I think there's lots of avenues, and it actually isn't much different to traditional business development. Just put all of that into your search for a new role, and be strong on and clear on from the outset, you know, asking the types of questions and getting the answers that you would want.
So why do you think too few women are in senior commercial leadership roles?
I think traditionally sales has got a bad rap, let's be honest. And I'm very people-centric, and it's all about the buyer. It's all about curiosity. It's all about less about you talking, more about you listening, because no one really should be selling things to people that they don't need, because it's only going to end badly. And I'm a huge advocate of our kind of customer success approach, and really looking at the clients customers you have, and maintaining those, and less about just the foot on the pedal of like new acquisition. Well, you can acquire all you want, if it's falling out the back end, like you're not getting any further forward. So I think it's fundamental that you put the customer at the forefront of that experience, and make sure that whatever it is you do have to sell is in alignment and solves a problem for that individual. So very people-centric approach. I mean, consumer duty, we're FCA regulated. I'm glad that that's been brought to the forefront, because it really should be about selling people what it is they need and they understand, and nothing else.
Yeah. So just to kind of like touch on the kind of like senior leadership, how can more women not only get into senior leadership, but not only that stay in those roles? Because there seems to be more of a turnover of women. If they get there, they don't necessarily stay there. What advice would you give?
Oh, for longevity in a senior leadership role, you really have to set yourself up for a work-life balance. I think you need to be aware of the pressures, and you need to go into that with the right mechanisms and support around you to be able to maintain that position. I play a lot of netball. It is absolutely fundamental to me. I ride horses. My daughter brings a great balance to me, because when I'm with her, I want to be a great mum, but I also want to be great at work. And actually that balance, I think, can help sustain. I think having a great peer-to-peer network, without a doubt. I think being aware of the challenges before you enter into them and setting yourself up for success is key. Look, there's lots of barriers to entry, and unfortunately, women, as we know, will look for the things that they can't do and then almost count themselves out of being able to move forward. We have many conversations at the Caxton Career Collective whereby, you know, you'll read a job description, you can't do 2 of the 15 things, and therefore you take yourself out of the conversation. Like, you've got to push yourself forward. For me, I will not look at a role if I have been there and done it all before, because what's the point? I mean, I'm just like, it's just broken record doing the same thing. I get bored easily. I like a challenge. I want to learn. Like, having a growth mindset is a great thing. No, I haven't done 2 of those 20 things on there, but that's why I'm applying for the role, because then I'm going to stay, because I'm going to learn, and it's going to add something to my portfolio as well. I think that it's the way that we think about things. It's the way we position ourselves. You know, having that value proposition of what you can offer the organisation and something different. You're going to get a load of carbon cutter people who are going to say, well, I can do all of those things, and then they're just trying to differentiate between the same. I think bring something different to the table that's going to add value to that organisation, and you know that in yourself, and be authentic. Like, if there's one thing that I've learned over the years, is the more that you can be individual and you can stand on your own 2 feet with your own voice and be very clear about who you are and what you can bring to the organisation, that's what's going to set you apart.
I love that. I love that. And, you know, thinking from the recruitment point of view, from the organisation that's recruiting, there's a process that I use. I'm very much about getting a wider catchment of people. The problem is there's a lot of bias, and the effectiveness of CVs, of, you know, traditional recruitment methods, of interviews, all of that is less than 20%. So we're working with really crude tools. And so being able to assess people prior to get to the interview, that will tell you this person's going to be successful in the role, guaranteed. Then you interview them based on, you know, the coaching notes to help the interviewer ask them more behavioral questions. There's a certain process that guarantees that success. But the difference is you can get a wider catchment, people that have never been in sales, in order to do this, so that you're actually, the job description is very much focused on the skills and not the person, because it's not limiting the person. So if you get a wider catchment of people coming in before the interview that you know are already going to be successful. So, you know, what is that based upon? That's based upon over 1.6 million other assessments, sales assessments, from leadership, manager, to sales support and obviously the reps position. We can benchmark against all of those in all these different industries and countries of what success looks like. So it's a much easier process that actually guarantees you can get a wider catchment of people that are guaranteed to be successful. And also you can do it on your existing team. So many CROs and sales leaders enter organizations, you know, what's the turnaround? 2 years if you're lucky, and you're inheriting a team and you have no idea of, or you don't have any of the history, but this allows you to actually get a snapshot of exactly where people are, and you can coach and develop them from there, or perhaps even work some people out. But rather than find out a year later, you know, you can do it from day one. So that's what I kind of love about this process of having the right people in the right seats.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's about behaviors, right? Like we've got core skills that may be required, and it's actually about behaviors and attitudes. I'm all about the aptitude test. We've actually just done some work across the business around relationships and how important they are. And we, off the back of that, got the entire team to do, it's off the back of Myers-Briggs, but a personality test. I mean, honestly, I don't want just one type of person in any team. Like I'd be looking for a diverse mix of people in a team. You don't want a load of lone wolves, right? You don't want a load of the absolute top performers fighting against each other. And I think the way we set up kind of commission structures and like the culture across the organization is really telling as to how long people stay and whether you really truly have a mix of people, because we're not selling to one type of person, right? Especially we have such a product mix. We work with different ICPs, we're working with various different stakeholders. Yes, you might have your CFOs who are generally more analytical, but then you're working with CTOs or you're working with lots of different individuals. Therefore, you want to kind of mirror having different individuals to make sure you're getting a wider scope. I think it's a shame, and I worry about AI in the recruitment process. I worry about the screening of CVs. I worry about the, you know, if there is a spelling mistake, you know, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty in mine and all over my LinkedIn, you know, I'm not the most academic. I probably have a little bit of ADHD and dyslexia, as my family did. But that shouldn't really be what matters. And I worry with the screening process that you're just wiping out a load of people because computer says no. And I'm not into the organizations whereby it's honestly why we do so well. It's where you lean into customer service excellence. It's where you can pick up the phone and speak to someone. You know, everything where I know we need efficiency and automation in various different areas, but there's certain parts of any business, be that recruitment, be that sales, where the people element and the relationship is fundamental.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. You know, we don't like that kind of development of technology. It doesn't actually make things easier. It actually means you get more of the worst.
Yeah, but the same or the worst, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And you know, I think it's really interesting what you say, that with the advance of the technology, it's an enabler, but you can't get away from it, and particularly in sales, the human element. And that's the thing that's often implicit and really difficult for, you know, it doesn't come out in your CV. Salespeople are good sellers. You know, AI can write the CV for you. It takes the human element out of it. And actually, there's so much bias in interviewing. Then, you know, if you're like me, then you're all right, kind of thing. So there's got to be a better way of actually do it. And even, you know, the kind of personality, the relationship, it's not sales specific. You might be a great person and you might be able to adapt your character to match your buyers, but it doesn't mean you're any good at sales, you know. Absolutely. So it's kind of a combination of them, isn't it, really?
Sure. And naturally and it's so, that's why it's so hard to hire great people in sales, because they can generally sell, so you buy it, but actually it's the organizational skills, it's a system. How do they use the systems? How relentless are they? What's their process? a combination of that with a listening ability. I mean, honestly, that should be number one for me on any on any interview, on any kind of skills scoring. It's like, actually, can people listen? Are they really listening? Because they're so busy talking, you're not even capturing the pain points, the problems, or understanding someone's business or that individual's requirements to be able to then find the solution for them. So I think, I think historically there was this real perception of what a salesperson should look like. Don't get me wrong, having a great personality is great, but actually the organizational piece, the systematic approach, the understanding a lot of the technology that's there to support, combined with listening skills and good personality, is kind of the winning source.
And it's interesting you say our research based on this whole database of assessments, that listening over talking is 375% more important for sales success than any other trait.
There you go. Thank you for that. Well remembered, Janice.
I use that a lot in my speaking engagement.
I know. I might have to get that tattooed somewhere. I mean, I always use the kind of 70-30 split. I'm always, when I listen to calls, and obviously you've got like intelligence that can be monitoring calls and things now, but you know, that's 70-30, and you can do it from the very beginning in the interview. The more someone asks you questions, the more of an insight that is into how they're going to be dealing with a potential prospect and client. And that's how you capture the information to be able to best serve them. I never forget, I went for an interview when I was actually moving into kind of fintech, and the CEO said, well, the reason we hired you is because you just constantly ask questions. Like, oh, to be fair, I don't think we learned that much about you, but you were constantly wanting to understand about the business. Well, then that shows a great sign of how someone else would be when they were selling your product and understanding the client base. So it's a great tactic. I mean, sometimes you have to answer a question as well, but you know.
It's all about them. It's not about you.
Exactly. I'm sure you want to know about me. No, you tell me about your.
Okay, let's switch it up a bit. If you're on a desert island on your own, Melanie, what would be the one thing you took with you?
Cup of tea. I mean, it's probably about 5 things you need, because you need a kettle, you obviously need the water, I need some agar nectar, some milk, a teaspoon, but a cup of tea is like a godsend to me. It's what keeps me calm. It's the answer to all my problems. I drink far too much of it, but yeah, I'm a Yorkshire lass, so a cup of tea.
So is it your Yorkshire tea bag, good and strong?
Absolutely, a
travel would stand up in it.
No one wants a Lipton tea bag, let me tell you. No.
Oh my gosh. When I first went to America so many years ago, I've been, my dad's out there and various relatives and things. I had Lipton tea, and it's like, what? What is? Oh, it's like wet water, isn't it?
Wet water, I'd hope, yeah. Hot wet water. Love
it. So, how can listeners get hold of you, Melanie?
Oh, come and stand outside the office. No, LinkedIn, obviously, Melanie Mills. Obviously, Caxton. I think we've got some links on there. Join the Caxton Career Collective. Male allies also super important. It's not just a female network. We've got a really good eclectic mix of people just wanting to do more in the space. So LinkedIn's probably the best way.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to get you on again, because we didn't talk much about, your methodology with sales, and you've got lots of customer stories and everything like that. So I look forward to speaking to you again. So thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you for Scale Your Sales, and I hope everyone enjoys the listen.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Scale Your Sales podcast. If you like this discussion, feel free to listen to other episodes or watch the Catchment show on YouTube and subscribe to future episodes. I would really appreciate it if you would leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you.